Hi, my name is Jonathan Hicks, and this evening I'm joined by
Steve.
Matt,
Mark.
and we've just finished playing Detective, a modern crime board game, which essentially pits you as detectives running around a sort of American, it's Richmond PD here, isn't it? So you're running around this city trying to solve a particular crime or murder of some kind. You're investigating to solve the mystery. And there's an awful lot you can do in this game. It's very free form, but typically the way it works is you have some kind of case. I should say we're going to do this without any spoilers. Obviously, don't pause the video and read anything, but then in that case, we won't have any spoilers. So the first case is a man with a golden watch, and it gives you a big pile of backstory here. And then typically there's a goal, so we're going to be investigating the golden watch, obviously. But then crucially, there's some leads here. So you can sort of follow the leads, and there's a couple of different ways you can do this. One is you can draw a card. So one of the key, we get these nice photos that come with it, but you can investigate this particular guy that it talks about, and there's a card for this. So Mark, then, who's handling the cards, has this big stack of cards, and he draws out the relevant card, and effectively you pursue that lead. But you can see from the deck here, there are loads and loads of leads. So it gives you a big pile of text here, and you kind of follow what it says, and there's a little bit at the bottom here, it says questioning 108, and this is for use with this website effectively. There's a website that kind of is built for the game, and you can type in various bits of information. So Matt was in charge of this, and he typed some stuff in here, and this kind of follows this particular lead on here. So we've got led to one lead, and this takes us somewhere else. And again, there's more text here, which we're not going to go through, but you're kind of following the lead and finding more information. I think we might have been interviewing this particular guy, and it sort of tells you how the interview goes, and you sort of read out that. But a lot of these cards have these icons at the bottom left, like a speech bubble here, that correspond to various tokens that you've got. You have these star tokens and also these sort of specific action tokens. So if you want to interrogate somebody a bit further, then you can flip over the card, and you can see there's more information on the back here. But that's a decision you're going to have to take. A big issue in this game is time. So for this particular scenario, we're playing over 4 days, and you kind of track the various hours through the day. But every time you want to go somewhere, so maybe you want to travel from headquarters to the lab, for example, you have to spend an hour of time to travel. And then when you go to a particular location, you can see at the top right of this card, it says you're using 3 hours. So you'd spend the kind of 1, 2, 3 hours. Now, in theory, the police work from 8 in the morning to 4 at night, and then they go home. But if you want to, you can kind of push your limits and go into overtime. And as you sort of accrue more of this overtime, you're getting stressed. They have these stress tokens, and these are like minus victory points at the end of the game. So you don't really want to get these, but you can push yourself if you're kind of at the lab and you really want to get the results for this test or whatever, then you can push yourself and get the extra stress. At the end of the day, you kind of reset this back to the beginning, and you go to the next day, and you can sort of pursue the case. So trying to decide whether or not to do that is an important consideration. So as I say, 3 hours is quite a long time, but that is how long it's going to take to pursue whatever this lead is. Also, you notice at the bottom there are some further leads here, and it gives you extra things you can choose. But what you're going to find is, you go through the various cards, there's lots of cards, and as well as the sort of initial leads they give you here, there's just way too many leads than you really have time to follow. So part of the game is deciding, do you really want to pursue this lead? Is this actually going to be relevant to the case, or is it going to be red herring? Is there just information that's not going to be particularly useful right now? Now, there is a kind of campaign for this, and potentially it might be that some of the information you find, or some of the leads, are relevant to a different case that's going to be important later. So there's a lot of decisions you need to make about what's relevant right now, because there's way too much information than you can really process all at once. You can also look up the various people, so whoever this guy is, you can kind of look him up, and if there's a criminal record on him, then the website will tell you information about that particular guy, any past crimes that he's done, his kind of height, weight, shoe size, that might be important, things like this, blood type. So there's lots of information that's being provided by this website. There you go, you can see Matt's just looked up a particular guy here, and it gives you information about him. And it's completely sort of up to you whether or not you want to look up information about all the various people that are going to turn up in the case. So ultimately, you keep going through. In our case, it was a 4-day case, spending your time to investigate the various leads, and at the end, you get asked on the website a big pile of questions, a bit like the end of the sort of consulting detective questions at the end. And if you're successful, there we go, this was the end of our case, then we actually managed to solve the case, and it gives you a score. So what was our score? We got 34 out of 40. Oh yeah, and then because of the stress tokens, we ended up with 32 out of 40. Congratulations, Master Detective. So we did quite well. What do we think?
If you play Consulting Detective and you like that, this is just a strict upgrade in all parts. The fact that it is way more open-ended, you can go and see someone and effectively they'll tell you something. You're like, do we think they're holding back? Do we think we need to look for more information? Do we think we need to, ask their butler if they were, something? And then you can spend some of your tokens and abilities, and each person's got some abilities to do this extra stuff. This is a mind map of certain situations in the game, which came from this mind map, which I started with, and you can see that I've just written so much more. Now I've note taken for Consulting Detective before, and I've not written anywhere near the amount of work. It took us, I don't know, like over 2 hours, I think, through this case. Bit of upping and throwing, bit of you just getting used to it. Maybe you go a bit quicker, but the discussion behind what we want to do. Do you think we're all saying, is it worth us spending our time here or doing some overtime there to do this extra thing? Which was really nice. I think in Consulting Detective, one of the bits for me that kind of lets it down a bit at the end is that when Sherlock's asking you the questions at the end, one of them's always ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. You're like, how the hell are you meant to know that? It's just a massive leap of faith. And here, we did it at the end. We got to the point we think we know what's all going on, but there were loads of leads we didn't follow, and we just got to hope that in the time we got enough information to the thing we've got. Do we follow that lead, or neither of them? Do we spend our time going there? Some really interesting decisions, and what obviously this is the first time I've played this. What would make this great is kind of that overall story arc. We've picked up several things you get during this case that don't get added to the case. You don't investigate in that. They get added to other cases. So we take a card out of this case and add it into the deck for case 2 and case 4 and so on. So there's going to be this overall theme that if we hadn't asked in this case, we wouldn't get. So I'm looking forward to see where that's going with that.
Okay. Matt?
Yep, like everything that Steve said, I really feel like this is a game that would benefit from having a huge pinboard or whiteboard behind me where you could do the whole crazy conspiracy theory thing and stick these pictures to it and put string between things and make this mind map into a big thing that you keep on your wall and do between cases, because stuff in this case links to stuff in the other case, so then you'd have strings going from this pinboard to the next pinboard, and it'd be crazy, but crazy in a really good way. So yeah, this is very much Consulting Detective, but doing more of the kind of grunt work by hand. You're looking stuff up on here, and some of the things you'll actually Google and look up the Wikipedia page for that actual thing. So it's not all in the website that they give you. You're looking up actual information about real history and stuff to help you with your kind of deductions. So it adds that level of realism, I guess, to the whole Consulting Detective type game.
Okay. Mark?
Yeah, I kind of agree. For me, this is like Consulting Detective almost perfected. It's like everything's been thought about, worked upon, looked at the flaws and issues with Consulting Detective and just tried to clean them up, make it a more modern environment, make you feel like you're in the situation better. I mean, Consulting Detective's quite good. You get that kind of the Victorian feel to some extent with the descriptions. But in this, with Matt, who was doing all the web search and stuff, it felt like he's doing the grunt work, and that makes so much difference. I feel like we really did make a difference in the fact that Steve was taking the notes, Matt was on the laptop, I was going through these cards and stuff, so we all felt like we were doing different things but all coming together and all making decisions. And while you haven't got the grunt work of actually doing the physical going through the files, you do when you see, oh no, this is going to take us 3 hours because we're having to wait for Sharon in the file, in like going through and getting it. It's like, oh no, this is taking far too much time, we're on a deadline. And so it really did feel like I was, to some extent, doing this job more so than previous iterations of this have done.
Rating?
I really enjoyed it, so I think at the moment I'll give it an 8 based on this first one.
Okay. Matt?
I'd be interested to see how, obviously this was case 1, so it's going to be the simplest case. And it did seem quite easy and straightforward. So I'm hopefully the next cases are going to get a bit more complex. So I would give it 7.5 for now, but possibly go up once I've seen case 2, 3, and 4 and how they progress.
Okay. Steve?
I'm not very well. I've struggled today. I don't think these guys are really, but it's really helped. Like Mark said, everyone doing a different thing. Jonathan was the reader, Mark was the card guy, Matt was the computer guy, I was the note guy. I think if you don't come into this with like a fully functioning mind, or with maybe only 2 people, it's just going to overwhelm you. I think potentially. There's a lot of facts and figures, and the fact is we had someone's name down twice in 2 different places, and it took us 20 minutes to realise, hang on, that's the same guy. We've written the name down twice, and none of us realised it until it kind of mentioned it there. So at the moment, I don't want to play another one of these because I'm absolutely shattered. I'm not very well, but I think it's going to have that kind of legacy aspect. The overall arc in the story is going to be great. It's got the potential to be very good. At the moment, I'll rate it 8, I think.
Okay. Yeah, it's tricky. If you want to feel, I imagine, like a real detective does, sort of tracking down the leads, this really puts you there. It's very thematic. I was going to call it flavour text, but really there's a kind of, it's like you're reading a novel. A lot of the cards describe the situation you're in. You're wandering around the police department. It shows you the various criminals that are being brought in, and it tells you things that you really don't need to know, but it just provides a sort of a place and a scenario and a setting for what you're doing, and it does it very well. All of the flavour text is written really, really well. So from a thematic point of view, it's great. It's the other thing though is that because there's so much information, and it can feel a little bit like a slog sometimes. Like, oh, do we go for this lead or that lead? Or there's so much information. How do we put it all together? That's right. As Steve was saying, I wouldn't want to do this with just 2. If you've got 3 people on the ball, I think that could work. But I would really want to do this with 4 people. You just need all the different people all focused. Because it's not quick either. As Steve said, it's over 2 hours. But you really need that amount of time to get through all the information. There's so much here. So if that appeals to you, and I think for some people it really will, this is great. It really does it very, very well. You just need to know what you're getting in for. Some people are really not going to enjoy this and they're going to struggle. But you'll know that if that's you, I think. Personally, I would be on an 8.5. I think it's very well done. All right, thanks for watching. That was Detective, a modern crime board game.